Welcome and thanks for joining us. My guest today is Gabby Scalf, a solutions engineer at Aptio, an IBM company. Gabby, good to have you with us.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
And, as we've seen, the cloud spending by federal agencies, cloud adoption continues to spread, continues to increase. And so it's become a fairly major cost item for IT departments. And that's given rise to the idea of FinOps or financial operations in relation to cloud spend. Tell us more about FinOps and why agencies should figure out what it is and do it.
Yes, so FinOps is a very interesting practice. About 15 years ago, there was this notion that moving to the cloud was going to be this faster, cheaper methodology to run our applications and our workload versus on-prem. Well, as agencies started to move to the cloud, we quickly realized that actually the cloud was not faster and not cheaper, right? And that's really where the birth of the FinOps practice came from because we started to notice a lot of our federal agencies started to say, well, now that I'm in the cloud, I'm not sure what is driving my spend. I'm not sure who's actually utilizing the cloud because, right, anyone can come in and procure cloud resources at just a click of a button. And now we have spend that is actually driving at a per hour basis versus before we had set contracts where we knew how much to expect at each moment, right? And so with FinOps, what we really focus to look at is, well, how much are we spending across our cloud infrastructure? What are we actually using that spend for in terms of our various different missions, projects,
Mhm.
agencies, being able to then look at it from well, if we say that agency A is spending $100, what is that actually supporting? So then really trying to tell the message of this is how much we're spending and here's why we're spending it. Now, the operational part of FinOps is where then we start to say, of course, now that we know how much we're spending, how do we spend less, right? So really starting to look at how are we utilizing the cloud infrastructure? Where are we over provisioned? Where are we under provisioned? And how do we make sure that we're getting the biggest bang for our buck?
Yeah, so the implication is that once you are in the cloud, it is not a fixed cost. It's
Right.
something you can optimize. Is that the what people should take away?
That's exactly it. So a lot of people first focus on a lift and a shift of moving what we have on-prem to the cloud, but think of cloud infrastructure as like a t-shirt. So what we say, instance types are essentially where we're saying you have to move your on-premise application and make it fit into a medium. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm a small and a medium, usually right in between, right? So if I go with a medium, my shirt's going to be baggy. If I go with a small, it's way too tight. And so we always go with the bigger, right? Because especially when we talk about infrastructure, we need that extra room. And so once you get your resources to the cloud, the next conversation we should always be having is, well, how do we now refactor, right? How do we now right size to make sure that we're fitting within a particular cloud SKU that really does match with our usage so that we're not paying more for something we just don't need.
And that really gets to the idea too of what people have always touted as one of the great virtues of cloud is scalability. But
Hmm.
if it scales quickly, then suddenly if you need the large, you can get it, but you don't have to
Exactly.
pay for it all the time. I mean, it sounds like without a FinOps view of things, then you're not really taking advantage of the rapid scalability for peak times when you need it.
Right. And that's where FinOps, a lot of the times whenever we talk about optimization, it's an engineering conversation, right? I just need my engineers to come in and look at this from a performance perspective. Well, sometimes we have to balance performance and cost, right? Now, for something that is supporting our troops who are, right, protecting this country, we should not be looking at cost savings over performance. But for something like an agency that is hosting, right, a dev application, maybe we should be more aggressive with cost savings than performance because it's something that is internal and is not supporting, right, mission critical applications. So this is where we really start to look at, and that's kind of the financial part is, that what is driving our spend and who's using it. Because then when I get into right sizing, I now understand, well, which one of my applications is right production, which one of my applications is dev, because then I can start to change my approach and my aggressivity based off of what those applications are supporting.
Right. So to put it in concrete terms, if you have an application that is fine with microseconds of
Right.
response versus one that is needs milliseconds, fine, but microseconds are a lot less expensive than milliseconds.
Exactly.
All right. And IBM has this idea of cloudability. And what is that, and how does that relate to what agencies are should be thinking about?
Yes. So here at IBM, we have an approach when it comes to FinOps about meeting our federal customers where they're at from a security requirement perspective, as well as meeting them where they're at from a use case perspective. And so FinOps itself is a practice that anyone can go out and start, right? You could do that through Cost Explorer, you could do that through an Excel file. But anyone who has ever taken a, cloud invoice, it's millions of lines. So taking this on manually is a very taskful job. And so what we focus on here within Cloudability, which is a FedRAMP offering within the IBM FinOps solution, is being able to automate the FinOps practice. So making this as easy as possible for every persona within the cloud. So being able to automatically take your cloud data, being able to automatically give you out of the box reports for an executive, finance, engineer to come in and understand spend. And so we really focus on three pillars: inform, visibility, and transparency and accountability of spend. Two, the optimize, so being able to now make sure that we are running operationally efficient. And then three, operate. How do we now plan and grow within the cloud and make sure that we're staying within the confines of a reasonable and respective, right, cost limit?
And federal agencies, of course, worry maybe to some extent more than commercial organizations about their cybersecurity and
Right.
especially their compliance goals, which always have to be baked into everything. And as new applications get updated, they have to deal with authority to operate and so forth. Those are
Right.
cost elements. Can a FinOps view help with those ongoing needs?
Yes, and there's kind of two pillars there. So how do we push out security if we don't know what is actually running within our environment, right? And so the first arm there is that transparency and that visibility, making sure that we have 100% allocation and tags within our resource, which we will help you with and automatically help you apply. So that then now I know that all my resources are secure and meeting kind of our security compliance because I actually have my hands on them. And then the second component is really then focusing on that future state. So being able to make sure that as we grow, we still have that transparency and that visibility. Now, a lot of our federal agencies will say, well, how do I make sure that my data is protected within this solution? Again, we are FedRAMP. We have many different federal agencies and even DoD customers who are leveraging this
Mhm.
solution, and we are protecting their data.
Yeah, can you give us some examples of agencies that have found, wow, this is what happened when I took this view, this approach?
Yes. So we have one customer who is one of our longest standing federal customers who actually manages billions of dollars worth of spend, who was able to come in and actually find over $1 million in right sizing actions. And that was just in 1 year. And so this is where, right, also what that customer was able to do was in meetings when, right, unfortunately, when Doge came in, they were able to actually have a sub ledger of their cloud to show, yes, we are spending this very large amount on cloud infrastructure, but this is what it's supporting, and was able to actually list out each application, each cost, and each usage of that. And that's one of the great things of FinOps for federal, specifically in the days that we live in today. It has become a paper trail for spend. So, right, if anyone's ever gone through a Doge audit, which I hope you haven't, but today I think just about all of us have, you have to have all of your justification and all of your ducks in a row. And that takes it's kind of a drop all everything and go at it.
Mhm.
And so this is where our customers who have implemented FinOps through Cloudability have actually just pulled up our reports within our solution and been able to show that and take a Doge, right, investigation from 6 months down to 6 weeks. And so it's really in the power of data and accuracy in that data and your ability to communicate that data.
And the other issue that really is going to affect cloud spending is the advent of artificial intelligence.
Hmm.
And if for no other reason than you see the major players spending hundreds of billions of dollars on infrastructure, expensive GPUs and so forth,
Right.
and AI requires GPU cycles, and I imagine that's priced differently than CPU
Yes.
cycles for regular computing. So tell us how FinOps can help optimize in this dawning AI period, which is, getting pretty rapidly adopted.
Yes. And so our approach here at Cloudability is really two arms. How do I leverage FinOps to manage AI, which is exactly what you just described, of how do I leverage the practice to get understanding of my FinOps, my AI cost? How do I leverage the practice to then monitor that and really control my AI cost wherever that lives, if it's right in Bedrock, if it's in Vertex, or even if we've created our own models, right? Wherever that is, we will meet you and build reports and show that spend. And we will even set alerts. So if we start to spend so much with GPUs, send me an alert. If you see an increase from yesterday to today that's over 15%, send me an alert. That's really in this control because if anyone's ever tried to practice with GPUs or any of the AI services, even the native services, you could one day have $100 worth of spend, start to dabble a little bit more, and all of a sudden now have 3,000, and literally less than 24 hours. And so that's really the power of alerts and our monitoring of AI. Now, another element that we are focused on is how do we leverage AI to make FinOps easier, right? And this is where we allow all of our customers to choose to either, opt in or opt out of this, but we can even leverage AI to come in and, hey, give me a report for agency A. I don't even want to click and go find that data. I want that in, right, almost a chat bot right at my fingers. And so we are also using AI conversation to get answers and data to our customers faster and easier.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, and you've started to kind of answer this already, but the reports and the alerts, they are drawing on data that is generated by the contract and by the cloud spend. But the implication is that raw data is the way that the old cell phone bills used to be, 10 million lines of charges.
Hmm.
Here it is, go make sense of it yourself.
Yes, exactly. And that's kind of where I'm saying FinOps is, yes, a practice anyone can take on, but without a true solution and you're spending over $1 million, it's very challenging. And it really gets us into that conversation of build versus grow. And with Cloudability, what we do is we still want to take on the approach of, right, giving our customers the oversight and the ability to still have their hands deep in the weeds, but being able to kind of take out the administration part. So being able to automatically connect to cloud bills, being able to automatically connect to CloudWatch to capture utilization data, and filtering that within a solution that then categorizes all of my dashboards, my anomalous alerts, my tags, my right sizing, my commitments, all in a single place. So this is where we essentially do the heavy work for you, and give you all of the templates ready to go and at your fingertips.
And leads to a question. Does this have a predictive quality to it, having FinOps? And it might even back up to development and
Mhm.
pre-deployment. Can you use these kinds of tools, the FinOps tools, to predict what it might cost you to run an application? And if it's this level of take up by the public or that level, then you can maybe do some planning.
Exactly. And we do kind of two levels of that. So one is our forecast models are very predictive, and machine learning based. So what we do is we look at historical usage and allow our customers then to tell us things like, hey, exclude a one-time charge because maybe I had a big migration and that's not going to be replicated in the future. Exclude things like credits that I got from the various different providers. And as well as look at things like the discounts that I'm getting from those providers because I want a true dollar amount on what I'm going to be spending in the future. Now, that's really when we start to talk about forecasts, but what you described is what we call workload planning. So, how do I make sure which vendor, so AWS, Azure, GCP, OCI, should I be moving my infrastructure to? And if I do, what does that cost? Now, here at Cloudability, we do take a cloud plus approach. So we are vendor and infrastructure agnostic. So we allow you to come in and build your virtual machine, your load balancer, even if it's going to be leveraging SaaS. So like maybe a Datadog, a Databricks, and actually build those financial models. So you can get a like for like. Here's how much it costs me for, right, AWS. Here's how much it would cost me for Azure. Here's how much it would cost me for GCP. So then you get to actually make those decisions on what that best looks like.
Because, yeah, predicting a given cloud's costs, I imagine, is pretty difficult because
Mhm.
you don't know precisely which services you're going to be using. And it's kind of an a la carte situation. The basic
Right.
hosting of infrastructure is one thing, but if you use, and as many agencies are, the catalog of thousands of services that the cloud providers provide, then you have a hard time figuring out what this is really going to cost in the absence of this kind of cloudability picture.
Yes, they do have, price calculators and a lot of the native tools. But one thing that makes us very different is what we do is we even will factor in things like your commitments. So if I make a savings plans or reserved instance with AWS and I have open space there, I should move a workload there, right? Because that means then I'm going to be getting a higher discount and I'm even burning down on that. So we even will give you recommendations on areas of opportunities, instance types that you should be moving to. And we even are starting to move to a model where we could say, here's how much it would cost you if you used, right, EC2. But here's also the model if you move to microservices like
Mhm.
EKS or containerized, right? So this is where we can really start to look at where, from a financial place, does it best for me to run that application, but also from an architecture perspective, what would be best?
Sounds almost like an intelligent robotic cloud broker for you.
Yes, makes the hard stuff easy. Yes.
All right. And so agencies thinking about this, what do you have to do to prepare? How do you get started with cloudability, with FinOps, if you're not there at this point? What should they do first?
Yes. So a lot of agencies we are working with now. If you are interested in working with us, please, come to our website, aptio.com. You can fill out a request there for us to reach out to you. But any agency that wants to just start with FinOps in general, I always recommend, right, first getting within your cloud broker. So if you have AWS, get with your AWS rep. If you have Azure, get with your Azure rep. They usually have a good place for you to get started in a lot of these native tools to really then start to, one, understand your data, extract your data, and really even then understand within, right, when we talk about a federal agency, we're talking about so many siloed different parts of an organization. So who should I even be working with to take on this initiative is something that we could also help you with.
And is this a good way for, say, the cloud operations people and the agency financial people, since IT is just a big component after salaries of most
Right.
agencies operating components, good way for them to have more meaningful conversations?
Exactly. So that's really where, FinOps is the financial, ops is the operation. And within Cloudability, what we're doing is bringing them together. And so this is really where, if we do it natively and we do it manually, we bring them to the same table. We have conversations and dialogues about our cloud and voice. We pull up the cloud, right, portal in our meetings and our conversations, and we really start to dissect that data. And again, if we use Cloudability, what we're doing is giving you one source of truth. So giving you one UI where anyone can log in. Finance sees a finance view, engineering sees a very detailed engineering view. And so that's one of the big things I would recommend is FinOps is really powerful when you're able to understand your users. So understanding your data, but as well as understanding who is going to be reading these reports and these different data sets and how do they view data, right? An executive, we want a lot of pretty nice graphics. Finance, we want a lot of variances. We want a lot of stuff about budgets, a lot of stuff about forecasts. Engineering, they're more focused about the services. They're
Sure.
more focused about the utilization, right? We should never push out just one report org wide, right? We should make sure that we are very specific, servicing each group within our organization.
And if you do it right, you could save millions.
That's right. That's the goal, right?
All right. Gabby Scalf is a solutions engineer at Aptio, an IBM company. Great having you with us today.
Thank you.
And I'm Tom Temin. You're watching Federal News Network. Let's go back to the studio now for more on the Industry Exchange Cloud.